Welcome back to Long Distance Work Life, where we help you lead, work, and thrive in remote and hybrid teams. I'm Marissa Eikenberry, a fellow remote worker, and joining me is my co-host and remote work expert, Wayne Chamel. Hi, Wayne.
That would be me. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am great. It feels like a million years since we have recorded one of these. So this could be fun or it could be a car wreck. This is the joy of recording live, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, for those that are now scared, if you're first-time listeners, do not shut this off. But that being said, today we're actually going to talk about acceptable meeting behaviors. So we actually got this survey sent to us by our boss, Kevin. And so it's a 2023 YouGov survey that was done of just different acceptable or unacceptable meeting behaviors. And they start off with just the behaviors in general, and then we actually go into generational stuff. But
now, just to clarify for the mere mortals out there who can't read our minds, YouGov is essentially, this is a survey, internal survey of U.S. federal workers in all the branches, all the divisions, all the stuff.
Right. So, lots and lots of people.
Context.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the first things that they did talk about, which we've talked about before, you know, when we mentioned remote work, is that while we would like to think that this is a majority of the population is not remote working. But they talked about 32% of Americans participate in virtual meetings for work and 37% for like personal calls. So that's where we're going with this. But Wayne, were there any that kind of stuck out to you from this first, acceptable, not acceptable graphic? And for those of you that are watching, I'm going to have this up on the screen.
Yeah, I think if we look at the general numbers, we're not getting generational or granular on this, just in general, certain things make sense, right? Having a TV on in the background, smoking, although that's interesting.
Okay, so why is it interesting to you?
Well, it says a whole lot more about where society has gone than where the meetings have gone.
Okay.
Because if we think about why smoking was banned in the workplace, secondhand smoke, being rude and blowing smoke in somebody's face, all of that good stuff. A lot of people take remote meetings in the privacy of their own home or a hotel room, wherever they happen to be.
Right.
And secondhand smoke is not an issue. You cannot catch secondhand smoke through Zoom.
That is true.
So I think that says more about the fact that people just don't want anybody smoking at all than whether or not it's rude on a meeting. Now, some of that is I come from the generation where I can remember people smoking in meetings.
Yeah, see, that I can't remember. I was old enough to still remember smoking in restaurants and there being a section for both. But
and of course, I live in Las Vegas where you can still do that.
Right. Well, and then for our audio listeners, so for smoking, they said, 75% of those surveyed said it's not acceptable in any meeting, while 12% said it's acceptable in informal meetings, and 5% said it's acceptable in any meeting.
Yeah, one of the interesting things I found about this report is that there is an increasing, especially among people older than dirt, there is an increasing gap between what it's okay to do in an informal meeting, teammate to teammate, than in a formal meeting where you're doing a sales presentation or you have a customer on the line or whatever that works out to. I think that is interesting.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And where you find that a lot is it okay to have a child or a pet in your lap?
Right.
And interestingly, more people find it acceptable to have a pet in your lap than a kid in your lap, which in a strange way makes sense.
It really does.
But, I can remember when remote work started to catch on, if you wanted to know whether or not somebody worked remotely on a regular basis or not, you'd be on a conference call and a dog would bark. And the people who worked remotely would say, "Oh, say hi to Bailey for me." And the people who didn't work remotely were like, "Is that a dog?" Like they'd never heard a dog before.
Right.
And so I think that gap between formal and informal, right? If I'm just talking to you, I don't care. Right.
Right. Exactly. Like Max barks and it's fine.
Yeah. Max barks or he jumps in my lap and I hold him up and go say hi to Auntie Marissa.
Right. Right. Yeah. My husband pops in behind me and I'm just like, oh my God, go away.
And I'm going, "Hi, Parker."
Right.
Say hi to Uncle Wayne. So I think some of those are really interesting. Where you start to see some gaps is it okay to eat?
Right.
Right. Is it okay to drink? There is a percentage of humans, and I'm looking for it, and I'm wondering who these evil people are. 3%. No, it's not 3%. I'm looking for drinking a non-alcoholic drink.
Oh, yeah. So 17% say it's not acceptable in any meeting. 53% say it's acceptable in any meeting, and 22% say only informal meetings.
Yeah, the Geneva Convention says people are allowed hydration.
Right. Like, I remember looking at this and being like, I don't think I have ever been bothered by somebody taking a drink. Ever. I can understand not wanting to be on a meeting and it's not a happy hour and like, oh, they're clearly drinking a beer. Like, that's a problem. I get that. But like, I have a soda with me all the time and I drink it in meetings all the time. And I never thought about it being a problem until I saw this.
Well, until we hold the intervention.
Well, it could be worse.
So, if we look at it, it's not really surprising what people think is acceptable and unacceptable, I suppose. It gets interesting around formal and informal meetings, right? And I have been on informal meetings, and again, everything is context, right?
Right.
I belong to a writers group. We used to regularly have cocktails during our meetings.
Yeah.
If we're talking about at work, I have had meetings with people overseas who, are taking the meeting out of the kindness of their heart, but it's after dinner and they have a glass of wine or a beer with them as we're having it, and it doesn't bother me.
Right.
First of all, they're the customer. What am I going to say?
Yeah.
But also, it's an informal discussion, and I want a heightened level of informality because I think you communicate better that way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've been on some, virtual happy hour stuff with sorority meetings or webinars or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, like it's 9:00. If I have a cocktail, it's fine. If they have a cocktail, it's fine.
Now, one of the ones which is very personal to me because, and people who regularly view this don't know this, but I wear hats a lot.
I thought about you when I saw that one.
Different types of hats. But you'll notice that nobody on this podcast has ever seen me wearing a hat because I differentiate between work Wayne and Wayne in the rest of my life. However, the one time I do wear a hat on a work call is because I live on the West Coast. My day starts way earlier than everybody else's. And if somebody, not necessarily a client, but if somebody on our team or somebody like that calls a meeting for 9:00 Eastern time, there's a pretty good chance I am not going to be showered and presentable.
Right.
And so I can throw on a shirt. That's not a big deal. But I'll often put on a baseball cap just so I don't look like Albert Einstein.
Well, I thought it was interesting too when I was seeing that because, we had a team member that she wore hats frequently and that was just part of her style. That was just how she was. And I was never bothered by it when I would see it. It was usually oh, wow, like that's a cool hat. I hadn't seen her wear that one before or something like that. So I definitely found it interesting it being on this because I never saw it as an issue.
Most people who wear hats do it as a cheap attempt at branding and differentiation, myself included.
Right.
So that particular person, that was part of her wacky,
that was her
laid back style. And it was great. One of the things that is important if you're going to do that though, and baseball caps are a problem for this, is they affect the lighting over your eyes and very often make it hard for people to see your eyes, and that can be a problem.
Right. And I can totally see that for sure.
Now, where things get ugly, as we look at this, is generationally.
Yes.
What people find acceptable and what they don't. I used to think I was pretty cool, and I do differentiate between formal and informal meetings.
Right.
And since extremely formal has never been my style, I'm fairly relaxed about some things, sometimes more than I should be. And I am a child of my generation.
Right. Okay, so give us an example.
I'm 62 years old, right? I'm looking at where there's a huge difference in what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. Walking around the room during the meeting.
Right.
There is no reason not to do that. When I'm in the conference room, I very often, because my joints ache and stuff, and I have the attention span of an Irish setter, so I have to burn off energy. So I'll stand and move to the back of the room, right? Stand against the back wall or something while the meeting is going on. I tend not to do that on virtual meetings, but I think that's largely a function of my camera setup.
Right.
I'm on camera most of the time. If it's a telephone call, I'll walk totally the house. There are ruts in our carpet from where I pace and walk during a telephone call.
Right.
But generally speaking, I'm a little more, particularly if it's a camera meeting, I'm a little more traditional. Like, no, I'll sit there like a good boy and do it.
Yeah, I do it too. And I've been on meetings or even streams that I watch where like people have gotten up, and I think for me the issue is less that they've gotten up, it's that their mic isn't set up for that, and so now they're talking, I can't hear.
You know what's worse? I just realized when I want to throttle the person.
Okay.
Not that I would,
because you're virtual, so you can't.
Actual laying hands on another human being is wrong. It's okay to want to, just don't do it.
Thoughts from Wayne.
But the big one for me, and it's because I never do this, is I don't do FaceTime or meetings, especially work meetings, on my phone. When I'm having a conversation, a webcam conversation with they're on their phone and they're walking, and it's like being on the deck of the Titanic.
Like I can't.
It's super distracting.
Well, and not only that, but like, okay, I'm somebody who gets motion sick real easy. And
Me
so I literally cannot watch people do that. Like, I know it's a thing. And we've had people on our own team that have done that occasionally. And I'm just like, I literally have to hide your camera because otherwise I'm going to puke all over this meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of surprised that wasn't mentioned in this list.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know. The problem with surveys is people answer the question that you ask.
Right.
Right. Nobody says, oh, by the way.
Yeah.
This drives me crazy too. I think the biggest one, and this is true of the workplace in general, which gets generational conflict, is what you're wearing on your call.
Right. Yeah.
So
for
audio, is it okay to wear your pajamas? Do you wear what you sleep in on a Zoom meeting? And, I sleep naked. So the answer is no.
Thank you.
Welcome to another edition of Too Much Information.
It was like, unplug my headphones. I'm out. Did not need to know.
But it drives me crazy. My daughter wears pajamas 24/7. She goes to the grocery store in a onesie.
No.
It drives me insane.
Well, she's what, a year younger than me?
Yes.
Okay, see, I was also the weird person, and I will confess, I'm weird, that I wouldn't go to college classes in pajamas. And I felt like it was very respectful or disrespectful when people
Why would
did.
somebody go to college classes in pajamas? Why would you leave your dorm room?
Yep. We had 8 a.m. classes, and I was like the only one in jeans.
But you're an old soul.
That is true.
So I can appreciate that. That's why I adore you. But it's not, pajamas are like an obvious example.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
But what do you wear on a call? And again, context matters.
Right.
Right. If I'm working from home because I'm always working from home, and you have a question and we have to get on a Zoom or whatever call real quick, if I'm in my gym shorts, if I'm not dressed 100% professionally, it doesn't matter because it's you and me. It's going to be a 5-minute conversation and we're out.
Yep.
If I'm in front of a customer,
totally different ballgame.
From the hips up, I need to be dressed like an adult.
Right.
I have worn a shirt, tie, and cargo shorts. I have done that more than once.
That's okay.
The customer doesn't see it.
Yeah. I mean, I've occasionally done that where I've had yoga pants and like something really nice, or when it's really cold in my office, I have one of those like Snuggie blanket things that, I mean, like it's navy blue. I put on it. I look like Cookie Monster. Like, it's a thing, but it's super warm. But you better believe if I'm sitting here and working with it on, and you or Kevin or somebody else is like, hey, can we have a meeting real quick? It's, hey, can you give me a second? And I will remove that because I do have standards.
Yeah. And I think that goes to a larger conversation, which is worth having someday, about formality or informality in the workplace.
Right.
I was working with 45 HR people at a client yesterday, and we were talking about what are the things that they're dealing with, and dress code and appropriate and inappropriate clothing in the workplace has boomed as a problem.
Yeah, I've seen it in sorority meetings sometimes too, and I'm like, this is supposed to be business wear, and you have a denim skirt on. Like, we would have sent them home if it was when I was in, but it was like, well, we can't say that now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just go back to what somebody told me just post-COVID when people were coming back, and she goes, they've gone feral.
Right.
Like, there used to be, because the workplace was largely homogenous, but even if it wasn't homogenous demographically, there were just codes in the way things were done, and they were the way things have been done for 100 years. And you had work clothes and you had play clothes, right?
Right.
It was like going to school. I had school clothes and play clothes. They weren't the same. And when we worked from home, it wasn't just that you're home, you can wear whatever the heck you want, but the social pressure about what you wore went down. So even now, men who wear suits to the office rarely wear a tie.
Yeah.
Like, they'll wear a jacket, button-down shirt. I mean, they'll look perfectly
they still look nice,
but they're not wearing, the double Windsor at their throat. And I think that what that does, and this gets back to the Spider-Man paradox, right? With great power comes great responsibility, is just because you can dress a certain way or act a certain way or get away with doing something online that you can't or wouldn't do in the office doesn't mean you should.
Right. I mean, there's still a level of respect both for yourself and for whomever you're on the call with.
And you know, yes, you are a grown person. Yes, you can make your own choices. You know, it's the whole thing about, do you get dressed in work appropriate attire in the morning?
Right.
Even when nobody's going to see you, right? There is evidence psychologically that it affects how you think and how you work and your level of professionalism. And there are plenty of people who say, shut up, old man, my onesie is fine, and it doesn't affect the outcome of my spreadsheet.
Right. Like, I know some people that they feel like even when they're working from home, I'm going to wear shoes, because for them, like, even just having, you know, whatever they're wearing, having shoes is the thing that helps them be productive. I am not one of those people. I will admit I'm barefoot right now and have a blanket on my lap, but I'm still appropriately dressed. And
so send your notes to Wilma Flintstone, Kara.
Right. But like, and I would have been even without this podcast, because that's just, I'm just,
hey, from the hips down, it's the Wild West. You can do whatever you want. From the belly button up, you better look like you're working. Yes. A couple of things. We are way past time, and we have had an inordinate amount of fun. And I think there are some important things to think about this, right? Where do the generational differences, right? If I'm going to coach somebody about their appearance or their demeanor, am I doing it because it's a valid business reason? Am I doing it because I am an old man?
Right.
Right. That is a conversation worth having. When it's you and I talking, the level of formality is much lower than when I'm talking to a client. And it should be.
Right.
Right. If you are inappropriately informal in a important business meeting, right? The VP is on the call.
Yeah.
Your AC/DC t-shirt may not be the best choice. But again, it's incumbent on us. Yes, the rules are changing. Yes, they are more flexible than they ever were. And what is the minimum professional standard in your industry, on your team, in your organization?
Absolutely.
And those are the things we need to think about. Look at me wrapping all this up, trying real hard to sound like we've had a professional discussion instead of venting, which we've largely
had
done.
A professional discussion. And that being said, if you would like to know how to be more professional in your meetings and remote work, you can check out our long distance leadership series at kevineichenberry.com/LDLS. Thank you for listening to the Long Distance Work Life. For show notes, transcripts, and other resources, make sure to visit longdistanceworklife.com. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. And while you're there, be sure to like and review. This helps us know what you love about our show. Feel free to contact us via email or LinkedIn with the links in our show notes. And let us know you listened to this episode, or even suggest a topic for Wayne and I to tackle in a future episode. We would love to hear.
And tell us your meeting peeves.
Yes.
And are we right? Are we wrong? Am I a grumpy old man yelling at clouds, or do I have a point?
Am I just an old soul and don't know how to act at 32?
And should she wear shoes, darn it?
I wear slippers sometimes when my feet are cold. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And as Wayne likes to say, don't let the weasels get you down.